For New Year's this year, I am going to lose 15 pounds. For New Year's this year, I am going to get my life together. For New Year's this year, I am going to start putting money in the savings account. For New Year's this year, I am going to go to the gym every single day. For New Year's this year, I am going to read one book every week. For New Year's this year, oh no, I can't do it. We have all been there. We come up on New Year's Eve and we are thinking about all of the bright future that lies ahead of us in a new year. And we decide that for some unknown reason, we're going to turn over a new leaf of something in our life and we are going to get our stuff together. And about January 4th, it all falls apart. To paraphrase, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your New Year's resolution. I'm not really sure why New Year's has taken on this tone for us. I suppose it's part of the frivolity of the year and, all of the fancy hats and the streamers and the fireworks and the ball dropping and too much champagne and all the other things that happen. But in reality, 11:59 on December 31st is really not much different than 12:01 on January 1st. And so, some time ago, I opted to give up making New Year's resolutions. I knew I wasn't going to keep them. They sounded great, but they just lead to disappointment and heartache and feeling bad about yourself because you really thought at the time you meant it. And then a few days later, it's like, well, maybe it wasn't that important. There are a few things, however, that we could take the time for as we are sort of preparing ourselves to launch into this new me of the new year. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to go over 5 alternatives that we have to New Year's resolutions that if we choose one of them that best fits our personality, perhaps we might feel better about ourselves in the long run. Because after all, a New Year's resolution isn't just supposed to be about the new year. A New Year's resolution is supposed to be about the rest of our lives. And maybe that's why they fail so greatly. So I think one of the things that we can do is to choose principles over resolutions. Instead of coming up with this concrete thing that I'm going to do every day or every week or every month, maybe we just decide on a principle for life that we want to adopt. This year, I choose kindness. And when we are placed in those situations where maybe we have not traditionally been as kind as we would like to think we are, maybe it gives us pause to think about how can I respond to this activity more kindly than maybe I would normally. Or maybe we choose a principle of simply, I'm going to take better care of myself. Because oftentimes we are the last person that we take care of. And so maybe this year, as we take little steps here and there, we just start thinking about the principle of, is this really what's good for me? Is this what is in my best interest? And if not, how can I adjust it so that it is at least better for me than maybe what I have done in the past? We can also maybe consider taking on the power of experimentation. Instead of saying, I am going to do X starting tomorrow every single day, maybe, for instance, let's give one from my own life. If I were to do something, we do these kinds of things at Lent as well, I suppose. But if I were to say to myself, I am going to give up Diet Coke. It's really not good for me. I enjoy it, but it's not good for me. And maybe I would do better off if I wasn't putting all those chemicals in my body. And so I'm going to give up Diet Coke. That's a New Year's resolution. But an experiment would be, I'm not going to have a Diet Coke today. And tomorrow, I will see how I feel. And maybe tomorrow I get up and I think, well, yesterday wasn't too bad. I don't think I'm going to have a Diet Coke today either. And then we readjust and we think about how we feel at the end of that day. And then maybe pretty soon we're thinking, okay, I made it through a week. Maybe I can go another week. But if we fail, if we say I'm going to give up Diet Coke today, and then something happens and we just forget, we just fall into the normal routine of our lives, and before we know it, we're having a Diet Coke, but we weren't even thinking about it. Then we have the power through experimentation to say, okay, how does today feel different than yesterday? And is this really something that is making me feel better? Am I better off without the Diet Coke? Maybe I'll try again tomorrow. But we don't just throw up our hands and say, I failed. And so we move on and just forget it forever. I think this sort of leads us into the third thing, which is to prioritize habits rather than goals. So maybe we just try to develop a habit. I'm going to read for 15 minutes before I go to bed. I'm not going to read a book a month or a book a week or a book a day. I'm just going to read for 15 minutes. It could be a newspaper. It could be a book. It could be, whatever we have at hand, a magazine. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. But reading is fundamental and reading is important. And we do become better people from reading. And so it also eliminates the screen time from our lives for a little bit before we go to bed and makes us maybe sleep better. And so we just try to develop a habit. I'm going to read 15 minutes before I go to bed. Now that could be the 15 minutes just before I go to bed, or it could be 15 minutes right after dinner. Whatever we decide, we're just going to try to develop a habit that through the course of repetition, of creating this habit, I will eventually get to where I am reading 15 minutes every day. And then maybe I want to set a goal of 30 minutes a day and get back into this slower lifestyle of just enjoying life. It could be something to the tune of, I'm going to set a goal that I will exercise in some way 3 times this week. I'm not going to go to the gym every day. I'm not going to get up and first thing I do is, get on my jogging shoes and go for a run at 4 o'clock in the morning. Somehow, whether it's going for a walk or whether it is climbing the stairs 6 or 7 times, whatever it is I choose to do, chair yoga, 3 times a week, I'm going to try to develop a habit that at least 3 times a week, I'm not just sitting on my couch watching Apple TV Plus. I think something else that we could do rather than making these kinds of insane resolutions is to celebrate the milestones. So rather than trying to make it all about the end result, let's make it about the journey. So I want to read 15 minutes before I go to bed. And then once I've done that for a week, maybe I want to take a day off. Maybe I want to reward myself by doing something different than reading for 15 minutes. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but maybe that's a milestone I can celebrate by saying, I'm going to take a break for a day. I'm going to jump back in again tomorrow. Or maybe it is, for me, it may be a milestone of I lost 3 pounds, but I'm not going to go out and have cheesecake to celebrate. But if I lost 3 pounds, maybe I will give in and not do the exercise that day. Whatever. But celebrate them. Understand you've actually made some progress and celebrate that somehow. For me, I rarely go out to eat anymore. Most of the times when I go out to eat, I'm either traveling because I don't have anywhere to cook my own food, or because I'm taking my mom out to eat because we go out to eat at least once a week. And I would not give that up. But for instance, because I don't go out to eat very much, maybe that's the reward. Maybe that's the milestone. I read for 15 minutes every day for this week. And so rather than just getting coffee at Panera in the morning, I think I'm going to get a breakfast sandwich as well to reward myself. just little small things to understand that the milestones matter. I think most importantly, no matter what direction you decide to take this, is that you learn to practice flexibility and forgiveness. Because if we make a resolution, I'm going to do this for the next year, and then we don't, we're like, well, I already blew it, so I'm not going back to that. But if we give ourselves some room for grace, if we understand we're not going to be perfect, it really is the journey. And if I made it 3 days before I screwed up, maybe now I can make it another 3 days before I screw up, or maybe I'll make it 5 days before I screw up. And that will give me just that little bit more oomph to go 6 days or to go 9 days. So flexibility and forgiveness will be big parts in all of this. Now, in addition to these 5 options, I mean, it's always good to encourage others to hold us accountable. So it is important that we don't just say to ourselves in the private of our home, this is what I'm going to do, but enlist the help of a family member or a friend. If I'm going to read 15 minutes, every day before I go to bed, give that friend permission to ask us, how's the reading going? And we have to understand that we shouldn't feel guilt if it's not going well, because we are doing flexibility and forgiveness. And we can say to them, well, I didn't make it 15 minutes last night. I read 10 minutes, and then the kids were running around the house and they were creating all kinds of chaos, and I didn't get back, but I'm going to get back on track. Thanks for asking. I think also it's important for us to think about, when whatever it is we're trying to do, we think about the why. Why am I doing this? I mean, obviously, I want to lose some weight, and I'm going to try to set some goals to help me lose that weight that for the last 6 months I have failed at miserably. I still weigh exactly what I weighed 6 months ago, and I'm nowhere closer to my target goal, which is 15 pounds less than where I am. And so what am I going to do differently? And why is it that I think that's important for me to do? And if I were to be honest with myself, I would say, well, I look awful when people take pictures of me because I look fat. The camera adds 10 pounds, and I've already got 15 too many. And so, I look way bigger than I should. I want to be around as long as I can for my kids, and having this extra fat around my stomach is one of the worst things that an older man can have as far as a health concern. And so I need to get rid of that extra fat that I'm carrying around. There are a lot of whys. And so when we become honest with ourselves about the why, then maybe we can also become more accountable to ourselves about why it's important. I think that whatever it is you choose to do, if you're going to do, Happy New Year, here's my 10 resolutions for the year, or if you're going to set goals for yourself, or if you're going to try to do some experimentation, whatever it is you choose to do, I wish you well, because unlike me, you won't be on a YouTube channel telling the world, what it is you're trying to get done. So this is the last video of 2023, and when we come back in 2024, I'll share some of those things, that the goals that I've set for myself that I'm going to strive for, but not beat myself up for if I can't reach them, because some things are just out of our control. I hope you have a wonderful New Year's, and we will see you in 2024. Remember, you have to start changing the dates on the checks you write. Thanks for watching.